Welcome to the Family Office, planning for the people who matter most.
So I really wanted to take this time, Chris, man, as we transition to really take a look at the entire year in review. Because, it's the last podcast of the year. So we're almost in 2026. And there have been so many different stories, man. So many different stories. And I'm really interested to hear what your take was, because, obviously this podcast is done by two people who have differing points of view as it relates to our politics. But, we have some similarities with our family values and economic outlooks and business and things like that. But I'm really curious to hear, because I want to get a sense of what's in your head about what's the most important topic in those three areas. So, because we pretty much talk about current events, we talk about health, and we talk about financial wellness, economics, and things like that, given our background. So I'll start off with you, and then we can just go back and forth. So as it relates to, you want to start off with current events? You want to do health first, or do you want to do wealth and economics first?
I think we could just start off with current events, just simply because we're talking about Minnesota already, and I think it just kind of goes into that. So, but for me, with current events, and I'm curious to know where you're at with this too, because I was thinking, okay, how's Len going to bring this today? And your friends have been quiet.
We haven't talked about this at all, so we get to react in real time. So I'm excited.
Here's the thing, okay? Current events, and the biggest thing for me that I think is starting to happen right now, and you're really starting to see this, especially after I don't know what the kid's name, I keep forgetting. He's huge, but was it Shirley, right? The kid that's doing this stuff in Minnesota. He's like 23 or 24.
23 right? years old, yeah.
Okay, this is exactly what we've been talking about. I think that this is a massive wake-up call, and this just goes in hand with, I think, is the fleecing of American sovereignty right here. And what we're allowing right now is just people are going to start to see this, and it's just if there is no ramifications for those who were governing these types of situations, because you're seeing it everywhere. I mean, the lady in who's the $5 million worth of fraud, I can't remember her name right now, in Texas, the African American Democratic lady. She was just got charged with the $5 million worth of campaign finance fraud. You're just seeing it everywhere.
Talking about Jasmine Crockett? It's not her, is it?
Yes, it is Crockett. I think it is Crockett.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it is Crockett. Right, I think it's her. Just got charged with the $5 million for the campaign fraud or something to that effect. You're seeing it everywhere. You're seeing it in California. You're seeing it in Michigan. You're seeing it in Texas. You're seeing it everywhere in these democratic places where the waste, fraud, and abuse are happening, and they're enriching their lives. So you're seeing the fleecing of the American sovereign wealth. It's being fleeced, and everyone's going like this right now, going, this is where all of our money's been going. Now, obviously, this isn't the only problem. We know inflation's high. We know we've been printing money. We know all that. But this has made it worse. And we're seeing all the abuse, and we're seeing these candidates get elected with this abuse money, this paid for campaigns at the expense of taxpayers. So I think that is number one, is you're going to start to see people wake up and go, wait a minute. So I definitely think we're going to see government accountability is going to really start to go up, especially in 2026, looking back at all the crap because 2025 was the year of showing. 2025 was the year of the emperor's new clothes, so to speak, right? We were getting a colonoscopy and an endoscopy on everything. And people are starting to see it. They're waking up and going, dude, we've been getting fleeced here for a long time, for a very long time. And then I also think that as far as current events, the most important things that are happening right now is that I think is just from a gross standpoint is just how bad the pedophilia problem worldwide and in America is and has been, and how our institutions of both spiritual and entertainment have completely infected those areas and have abused young people, both in the entertainment industry and in the religious, I don't want to say spiritual, let me back up there, because it's not the spiritual world that's at fault here. It's the organized religions that claim to be doing the good of the communities they serve, but they're just there to get rich. You know, the famous Instagram pastors and all that stuff. Those types of things. So to see the amount of pedophilia that was just brutally in our face and used and then shadowed and then protected under the guise of inclusiveness by our politicians was just disgusting. Like, ugh. Right, to see that, and then obviously the AI rise. And I think just the AI rise happened so fast in 2025, and it's put it front and center. I think those are probably the most, and think about it. We did, you know, going back to the pedophilia stuff, we didn't just see, you know, the pedophilia stuff happen. We had an Epstein and a P. Diddy going on at the same time. We had a white guy and a African-American guy, like just both sides of it, just to close that up and make it so how gross it is. But the AI stuff to me is exciting, not in a sense of where people lose their jobs, because that happens when innovation happens, but to see how fresh and how exciting something can be, and how both from a capitalistic standpoint, a technology standpoint, and also from a human efficiency standpoint. Because if you do put AI to work on this crap that's going on in Michigan and really have a program and software written to be good for to be an auditor for people, yes, that's where AI does well, because AI would have caught this a long time ago and put the patterns together and went, all these daycare businesses are fraudulent and they're all owned by Somalians. It doesn't take a genius to recognize that pattern. That's what I go back and I go, that was deliberately overlooked to buy votes. No doubt about it, to get votes. But those, I think, are the most important things. And I think that going back to what you said, Len, I really do think people are going to be held accountable for it. Because if they don't, that's where you'll see some Civil War riot stuff. Because if I'm a guy who's 28, 29, 30, and I'm in Minnesota, and I'm working my tail off and doing everything right, and then all of a sudden this crap's happening and I can't afford Christmas, ooh, baby, that's some heat right there that you don't want to mess with. And that's exactly where you get into some dangerous stuff, because then you see these, like this guy, social media, he just got arrested or whatever, Somalian guy, all over social media going, go ahead, white boy, go back to work and work for me. I get everything for free. You seen these videos on TikTok? It's crazy.
I haven't.
That make a mofo psychotic. Crazy. Especially if they don't have children, because you know men get crazy when they don't have kids. I think on
Twitter you could definitely find instances that would make anybody's skin crawl, just because there's so many crazy people out there. And I think the danger is taking 2 or 3 incidents or 10 or 12 incidents and making it representative of the whole, but it still doesn't take away the maddening aspect of that. So here's my question to you. So you mentioned AI, you mentioned Epstein, kind of indirectly, and then you mentioned this idea of waste, fraud, and abuse. If you had to choose one, and you could only choose one as the most important topic of 2025, which of those would it be?
I just would have to say that it is the absolute disgrace that is how our government's being ran right now fiscally. It's just a disgrace, and we're all paying the price for it. Because all of these things go back down to the bottom line. If the country's broke, we can't invest in things to fix this stuff, because we're spending dollars to fix dollars that we deliberately spent to break stuff. And that's what's allowing the rise to all this stuff. Now, pedophilia is going to be there. AI is going to rise up, all this stuff. But I think it's look, if we don't get you know it already, Len, we've talked about it. If we don't get our fiscal house in order as a country, we're toast. And that's really what's killing us. That's why you see all this stuff prevailing right now. Bigger than AI, bigger than all of this stuff. Yeah, and I think we might have talked about this, Len. If we had not advanced as much as we had as a society, right, and we kept the balances on tech, and we were a little bit stayed a little bit more the way we were in the 80s, maybe in the 70s and the 60s, yeah, we might not be as wealthy and might not have as much progress as far as scientifically, but we'd probably be a lot more happy and a lot more stable as a society and as a race, I think, anyways, because we've just gotten so fast where the brakes are so off this thing, right? Like, because if we don't get control of the money, then that ultimately leads to collapse, and we know that. We've seen that in history. We've seen it. The last time we saw a collapse this big, it was the Roman Empire, and look what happened. Look what happened when the Roman Empire collapsed. It was craziness all over the world, right? So, yeah, definitely that's the problem right now, is the biggest thing, I think. And I think we saw it. I don't know if we saw it too late, but we definitely went, oh my God, it is as bad as we think it is. When the smartest man in the world looks at it and goes, it can't be fixed, you definitely got some problems.
Mm-hmm. For me, it's interesting the angle you took, because my number one was, you mentioned it, but my number one was the Epstein files. It was that pedophilia is absolutely one of the worst types of violations that a human being could do to another. The other part of it, which was the reason why I chose the Epstein files as the number one, was because of the lack of accountability that people in power have. And so it's interesting, because you talked about your number one being government fiscal responsibility and waste and fraud and abuse and all of those things. It's almost the same thing, because really it's an issue of people who have power and influence not being held accountable for their actions. And the result of that lack of accountability is this erosion of trust. And the only thing that makes America great is that there's this sense of trust that people have in the government. But what's been happening is, I would say over the last 20 years in particular, that erosion has been gradual, but I think what's happening is the erosion is becoming more accelerated. And when that acceleration of erosion happens, it gets to a point where we can't even trust what's happening. And so when you go from distrust to skepticism, and I think we're in the skepticism phase, but it could get to cynicism. Once you get to cynicism, a person could be telling you that absolute truth, but you think it's a lie because everybody else and the 100 people before you told me something similar. Why should I believe you? And I believe that once the population and the United States citizenry is cynical about the leaders they have in a republic, we run a very dangerous risk of civil war, civil unrest, a lot of protests, and then when you look at also Gen Z and their lack of hope, when you lose hope, you have nothing to lose. Because think about it, we've talked about this on our previous episodes, that Gen Z is the first generation that really has no positive outlook as it relates to their economic prosperity. The reason why people chose to come to America was this hope that they could prosper economically. And so when you have people who've been born here, who have every opportunity to excel, not having a real opportunity that they saw their own parents have, it really starts to create this whole degradation of the quality of our society. And I'll leave off with this, because I was watching something a little earlier today, and there was this special about how teachers are feeling so hopeless because when they listen to their students, especially post-COVID, there's this sentiment amongst them that, why am I here? Like, why am I learning math? Because I can get the answers from ChatGPT. Why am I writing this paper when I can say the words and put it into a program and it can spit out an entire report for me? Why do I need to think for myself? Because I just need to have the semblance of a thought, and this tool could help complete my thoughts. And so now when you don't have this muscle of your brain called cognition and critical thinking, and that stuff isn't exercised, then now the whole infrastructure starts to die down, starts to break down. So while I'm excited about AI like you are, I'm really concerned about just this entire sense of this almost despair that we're starting to sense across the country. And so the Epstein files in my mind is just a symbol of the lack of accountability that creates this trickle down effect of concern and lack of trust and despair that we're experiencing.
It's interesting when you talk about that, because we're in a lot of similar pages here, and I know you said a lot there, and I want to kind of jump in on a few of these things to kind of make the points there. Look, we're getting killed by, and it's exactly what you're saying. We're getting killed trying to make things work, and then we realize that our government officials are working against us. They are. They're working against us, and they're enriching minorities, and not minorities. Sorry, let me say this again. They're not enriching minorities. They're enriching minority groups of people that migrate to this country illegally or legally, but then we forget about the people that were here to begin with and are here paying their taxes. So how's that fair? That's how you create that anger that you're talking about, because it's like, dude, you can only take so much. And that's where people go, I'm not against immigration. I'm just against allowing swaths of people to come in here and take advantage of the system. And that's exactly what you've seen. Then you see, the pedophilia and the Epstein stuff, right? And then you see the AI stuff. What do they all have in common? Everyone's going, oh my gosh, all these things are about what? The abuse and the taking of the working people or of the everyday person in the world, right? We just keep getting abused. The little guys keep getting abused. The powers that be, the wealthy get wealthy, right? But what we're seeing here, when you tie this all together, it's not. And then, of course, the classic Uno reverse is getting pulled on everybody right now. And what's that Uno reverse? Oh, this is exactly why you need socialism. Because we need to take care of you, because capitalism has failed you so much, right? And we blame capitalism, but really, it's not capitalism's fault. This is what you're seeing right now is what's called corporatism. That's what we're all seeing. Corporatism. We're seeing corporatism. And what is corporatism? When the government gets in bed with private business. And we've seen this happen. And you're right, Len, you said 20, 25 years, over the last 20, 25 years. Well, when did we start to see it just get outrageously insane? In the early 2000s with the dot-com bailouts, then the bank bailouts, right? Then the COVID bailouts. Like, the government is just so heavily involved now in private business. We've allowed politicians to get rich because we've allowed corporatism to take over. And corporatism is killing capitalism and making socialism popular again, because you have to have an enemy and you have to, that's the solution. And this is the Uno reverse that happens all the time. But if people would really truly understand, right, what Marxism is and and all that is, you'd really understand that it is not a belief system of care for people. It's a belief system, non-Christian values, that you are better, that the one person has your best interest in mind, and this collective group of ultra realistic people are going to make decisions for everybody, and the collective makes the decisions. But the problem is that there isn't a ultralistic being on earth ever that can make those decisions and go, I'm going to make a decision today and not be selfish. Good luck. Not a human being exists in the world that's going to go, I'm going to make an unselfish decision today. Yeah, we have fleeting moments where we're selfless. Of course, some more than others, but that's why the Constitution is so genius. Because again, the Constitution governs human nature. And socialism and communism are just there for those who really don't want to get up off their ass and work. So just call a spade a spade. You're lazy, you don't want to work. And I get that. Yeah. Everyone's like that. But yeah, everything is about taking from somebody right now. But on the wealth side of things, if you want to switch gears, for the biggest news What is your biggest news, Len, or what do you think is the biggest thing that happened in wealth or money this year?
So I would say that rising costs have been a continuation of various administrations. So I don't want to pin it all on Trump. What I will say is that when you look at inflation and when you look at the tariffs and you look at this issue of affordability, it is really hitting a place where the average working class citizen is having a very difficult time to get by. And I think that it's a convergence of all of these different variables that you talked about earlier. One, this corporate greed. Two, this idea that with, going back to the tariffs is a tax on everyday people because the cost of goods and services being shipped here doesn't necessarily increase the incentives to manufacture here locally because that ship has sailed. So what happens is that those costs pass down to the everyday consumer. And so I believe that the affordability issue has been a long-standing issue for different administrations. I just think that the tariffs have added more fuel to that fire to make things less affordable. Now, you'll hear people from the other side that's pro-tariff and pro-Trump say, hey, well, right now interest rates have gone down and we've had more people with, costs are coming down for eggs and gas and things like that. And all of that's true. But if you look net in terms of just the cost for housing, the cost for eating out, the cost for groceries, all of those are getting to a point where it's a breaking point when you add in insurance and all of that stuff just to maintain a house and all of these things. People feel less financially capable, especially when you have a two-parent household that's both going to work and they're still struggling to get by. And then we have this next generation of kids that are coming up, going to high school and going to college and not really having a favorable outlook from when they retire, for when they graduate. So I would say for me, the number one issue overall, if I were to sum it to one word as it relates to health, as it relates to finances, affordability.
So to answer your question, Len, I think that as you were asking me, or in regards to what wealth has changed, and you were stopping or dropping off with affordability, I think again, affordability is not a crisis of one administration. Affordability, and we've talked about this quite extensively. Affordability has been brewing, and that we saw that start to brew, especially when you went off the gold standard. We've been on the collision course since then, right? And no one can deny that. But I think what we're seeing right now is seeing a massive shift with cryptocurrencies and digital currencies and blockchains and how transactions are processed. But I think you're starting to see tiers of wealth for the first time in America, where you're starting to really see that being middle class doesn't mean middle class anymore. Like for example, if you're in California, middle class is not middle class in Texas or Tennessee or you get what I mean? So that has changed a lot. You're starting to see those different tiers based on what state you live in. And I'll give you my point. Gas is under $3 a gallon for 93 in Texas right now.
That's crazy.
And you just saw Chevron just said, adios, we're leaving California, and ConocoPhillips, which is roughly 22% of the refining capacity in California. So again, and here's the kicker. California can't import gas from any other state because they don't refine it the way California wants it. So good luck come January, February, March, April.
Oh, they're going to have to go to like Asia and India and bring in dirty crude oil and gas.
Right. So California is such this paradox in that we're so environmentally conscious, yet then we're going to go turn around and buy oil that's dirty from drug lords. It's just so crazy to me, right? So you're starting to see affordability crises But what I think you're starting to see, and this kind of goes into predictions of next year, so I'm not trying to cut ahead, Len, on you, but what you're starting to see right now is you're starting to really, really see that it's not just, oh, things are better in Texas because it's Texas, right? It's not propaganda anymore. What you're starting to see is you're starting to see market dynamics in certain states where it goes, dude, if I go to Texas and I'm making $100,000 a year, it's like I'm making $150,000 a year now. And my wife doesn't have to work anymore in Texas. That's what you're starting to see now. You're starting to see for the first time again, and I don't know, maybe ever since I've lived, where you're actually starting to see a significant difference in change in life, whether you live in a certain state or not. And that's exactly what is going to happen massively in 2020. If we think migration happened last year, good luck. As soon as California starts charging $8 and $9 and $10 for gas, which is going to happen, there's no doubt about it come July. And Newsom is going to skate out of office, term out of office, smelling like roses, trying to get presidentially elected. Good luck, bro. Good luck. So yeah, I think you're starting to see, and going back to what we talked about, Len, you see that in that you see like 22 states, mostly democratically led states, are in active recession right now in the United States, where you see a lot of red states that are in active expansion mode right now. So, and states like California that are teetering. So yeah, I think you're spot on with the wealth stuff, with affordability crisis. But what you're going to start to see, I think, is this affordability crisis is going to disappear come Q3 of next year.
Okay. Think so.
Like you're going to start to see change, but not in California, not in Illinois, not in New York, not in all those states, and not in Washington, Oregon. You're going to see it significant. They're going to come down a little bit because a rising tide lifts all ships. But if you live in some red hot states, no pun intended, you're going to see it so fast because you're already seeing it. I went to the gas pump and I went, dude, am I really paying $2.75 a gallon for 93 right now at Sam's Club? No way. Yes way. That's Texas, baby. Texas and Oklahoma's cheaper. Go figure. California.
So are you agreeing that affordability is the number one topic for you too, or was it something different?
I think hands down for me, wealth. Two things. To me, it's 50-50. Number one, I think affordability is a massive crisis because even wealthy people that are making $500,000, they feel it now. Look, if you would have heard me giving a talk in front of my office, Len, in 2021, 2022, I would have told you, I said, look, if you're making $500,000, you're not going to feel it. I could tell you right now with confidence, if you make $500,000 a year, you feel it now. You feel today. Not maybe if you're in Texas, but if you're in California, you feel it. Bad. Massively. I just don't look, if you're making over $250, I don't even know why you're still in California.
Sometimes I wonder.
Unless you don't make any income and it's all corporate income outside of California, which is probably the only reason why you'd stay in California anyways, is own nothing in California, operate nothing in California, make nothing. But California is very smart and they will find a way to tax you. They will find a way. What was that thing they were trying to tax sports income made in different states if you lived in that state or some crazy BS like that? So yeah, but ultimately, look, I understand still, wealth is wealth. And still 90% of people don't make six figures, right? Even today, I think that is. I don't know. It might be closer to like 86 or something like that. It might be different now. I think because more people make six figures today than they ever have. But
it doesn't mean the same now.
Yeah, it doesn't mean the same, right? Because it's all relative, right? Like,
yeah, because I'll give you a case in point about just the devaluation of the dollar. I bought silver at about it was like $21 an ounce. I just checked. Silver spot price right now is $72.93. So
when did you buy it at 21 an ounce?
It was about 7 years ago.
Yeah, isn't that crazy? That's just absolutely insane. And gold.
I bought kilos. I bought kilos of silver, and I bought ounces of gold. Yeah, man. And gold is like over $4,000. I bought it at 1,300.
I always knew you were some kind of street lord, Len. I knew it, dude.
Hey, man. You know, all of you finance guys say, hey, man, keep about 5% of your portfolio in hard assets as a hedge against inflation. So I was like, you know what? Let me go buy some gold and silver, and I just
precious metals, baby.
And it's, you know, I have it in a special place, and it's not gold futures. It's gold. It's actual gold coins and silver kilos, man.
When Costco was selling them, they were so popular. Costco would sell out of them. They started limiting you. They had the Troy ounces of gold, the ones from Swiss, the Swiss 1 ounce bars. Yeah, awesome.
Yeah, I went to. I remember there was a guy who did a series of stories about just how the dollar devalued. I can't remember his name right now, but he promoted this particular company, and because they actually hold the asset or they can ship it to you, and so I decided to go with them. I don't remember their name anymore, but yeah, so I wanted to make sure that I got it as close to spot price as possible, you know, and I made arrangements to have it shipped over to me, and you know, I went through the whole process. Instead of getting, you know, a coin, I wanted to make sure that I got, you know, actual, you know, like I said, kilos of silver, so I could get as close to spot as possible. But my point is saying all of that is not to talk about my portfolio per se, but just to talk about the devaluation of this fiat currency, which is making affordability much more difficult these days. And so it's so important, Chris. I know you would preach this to your people too, which is, you know, it's really important to have diversified types of assets, because if you hold your money in cash, it's just an eroding entity because of the fact that the valuation of that fiat currency is just going to continue to go down.
Yeah, anything cash or anything fiat currency. And it's so funny because now you see all these big Wall Street guys that were so opposed to Bitcoin are like, oh, don't be surprised when Bitcoin hits 150, it's 150,000 per coin. It's going to happen. I mean, there's just absolutely no doubt about it.
It's inevitable.
I mean, and it's such a great time right now to get into any of that stuff, especially fractionals and futures and stuff like that. So why not? Why not? You know, but yeah, I think affordability is going to continue to be an issue. I don't see it ever going away. It's just going to get worse. But the good side to it that I think is that you are there's so many different ways to generate wealth and create wealth today that I think is just infinite. I mean, it gets easy to make wealth today. It's just easy to get involved in something, go on YouTube, do something. So yeah, I think that you're going to see the continuing of wealth creation, but in a lot of different ways as we start to see new economies be built and new sectors be built, which I think it's very exciting. But at the same time, you're going to see old sectors that are going to die, just like it's sad to see the shopping mall die. But who knows? You might see the shopping mall come back in a massive way because people still want to be together, you know, and they don't want to just kind of be all online and be virtual, you know. So like, for example, all these young kids that are driving cars like their mid-20s and early 30s, they all love cars from the mid-2000s and all the way up to like 2006, you know, 15, 2011, because they all have manual buttons in them. And they're like, oh my God, it's so cool, like switchgear and everything, right? So you never know. And all of a sudden, V8 cars are extremely popular because they're not being made anymore. Nobody wants an electric car. Nobody wants an electric car. Nobody wants an electric car. Nobody. Yeah, you do, but you don't. You want an electric car. Like, for example, I want an electric truck just because I don't own a truck, and that's the only vehicle I want to put in electric. I want an electric Rivian truck for my farm. That's it. But otherwise, I want a V8 or a nice straight turbo 6-cylinder because it feels cool when you drive it. You know, after a minute when you're in that car, you know, and you're just like, dude, this just feels so clinical. But at the same time, I think that's exactly why Tesla's going to blow up too, because the need for that, robo-taxis, all that stuff, autonomous stuff. So
yeah, man, I think there's so many opportunities out there for people who have the ambition and the work ethic and the ability to be uncomfortable for a while to change the trajectory of their life. But I think it's also important for people to be self-aware, because some people aren't entrepreneurial, and that's okay. Just look at the trajectory of where we're going because of technology and the infiltration of AI, and just don't be behind that, because you can have a job today and it's gone tomorrow and you never saw it coming, just because change is happening so quickly. And I'm interested to switch gears with you, unless you want to talk about that. I wanted to get your thoughts about just health, because over the course of the year we both talked about health, but I really wanted to give you the space to close out with the whole wealth part before we switch over, if you had anything else.
No, I mean, to me, I think it's crypto I think is the future for a lot of stuff, and you're seeing how that's going to take over. And
not only that, but smart contracts and the whole smart,
everything. People want transparency, people want openness, but people are so sick and tired of the current system, because again, this goes back to what we were talking about when we opened up. Like this, nobody trusts the system anymore. And when you see this crap that's going on in not just Minnesota, right, or Michigan, it's happening in California. Massively, dude. Massive. It's not just small, it's massive. It's unheard of how massive it is. So people are going, dude, this, and then topple that with the fact that, dude, I went to school and my degree's worthless, but I still got to pay the debt back. But Harvard is growing tax-free, bigger than they ever have been. And then the guy that didn't go to college, who's barely making it, has to pay the damn debt.
Right. Yeah. Right.
What country are we in? What the hell, dude? So yeah, I think that you're going to continue to see finance is going to continue to be a big issue. But I think you're also going to start to see things change, because it's going to be change. Look, change happens violently. It happens all the time. The Industrial Revolution was very violent, right? I mean, so things are going to happen. We're in that moment right now. We're living in that moment right now where we're seeing revolutions happen. Not in the sense that we're like a civil revolution or something like that, our country, but a revolution in finance, business, technology, all of that stuff. Because, we're changing. Everybody had a Merry Christmas. Everybody have a Merry Christmas. If you haven't celebrated that yet, have a Happy New Year. Stay safe. And we'll see you next year. Thank you, Len. Have an amazing one. And we'll see how things shift. And now, that being said, if you like the content, subscribe, comment. We love to hear from you. And again, at the end of the day, we want to have a great, clean dialogue. And then obviously at the end of the day, have a beer and be friends. And that's really what it's all about. You don't have to agree all the time, but have a conversation and have a dialogue and a discourse about it. That's really what it's about. So everybody have a great, Happy New Year again. Stay safe, and we'll see you next time, Len. Thank you.
Conversation has given you clarity on your next steps. Please share this episode with someone who's walking the same path. Don't forget to like and subscribe so you won't miss future episodes. And remember, planning ahead isn't just prudent, it's an act of care. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time on The Family Office.